over the past few days, Leeds United have been linked with a very, very big move for a very, very talented centre-back. And I've not personally covered it properly until now, because I hadn't quite figured how much momentum it was gaining, and I hadn't seen too many relatively reliable sources saying anything about it. But seems to be picking up a little bit of steam in terms of people responding to it. So I thought I'd throw my own words into the mix and sort of discuss what the news is surrounding Ousmane Diomande, who's saying what, who can be trusted, what Ousmane Diomande, there we go, plays like, and ultimately why it doesn't work and the one case in which it does. So, to start with, who Ousmane Diomande is, he is a 22-year-old player for the Ivory Coast and Sporting Clube de Portugal. A lot of people say Sporting Lisbon. No, Sporting Clube de Portugal. I've been told off many a time by my Portuguese colleagues. You got to get that one right. Currently at the World Cup with the Ivory Coast and is a very, very, very good, promising centre-back. It seems effectively inevitable that he will leave in this window because a lot of different clubs around Europe have been following him, not just for this window, but for several windows in the past. It's just no one's quite made that jump yet, and it looks like this summer is going to be the time that someone does. However, we all know that there's a very, very promising footballer called Ousmane Diomande. We all also know that we should subscribe. The button's right here. Just give it a quick click. Thank you very much. And we all also know that there are reports that Leeds United are at least interested, and there are some reports saying a little bit more. So, something that is broadly agreed amongst absolutely everybody is that Sporting seem to want 50 million euros. To translate that into British money, we're talking about £43 million, which is a hell of a lot of cash, which a lot of football clubs would have to think not only twice, but many, many, many times before committing to. The Mirror, however, claim that Leeds have thought twice and thought thrice and ultimately decided to throw some money into the ring, with the Mirror claiming that Leeds have made a bid of £35 million with £8 million of add-ons. That seems like an incredibly large bid for reasons I will get into in a minute's time, but beyond this, there are further claims by Christian Vaquero, who is a, I believe, South American journalist with a little bit of an interest in Portuguese football. He claims that personal terms have already been agreed verbally between Leeds United and Ousmane Diomande. Neither of these sources are the best. The Mirror has its moments for being quite good. Vaquero, I can't say whether he's especially good or especially bad. I'll be honest, I've not really heard of him too much. But I figured it was worth a bit of a shout because he has a very, 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 very large following. However, he has also been linked with the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal before, so that says that in all likelihood, if we were to be submitting a bid along the lines of 35 plus 8 and Sporting just want 43, if they want it straight up, they can wait. They can take their time. They can let a bidding war roll on and on and on and ultimately put themselves into a position where they can just wait and something will come in their general direction. Ousmane Diomande is one of those players that is absolutely set for the stars. There's a lot of potential there. It's just a case of where he fulfills that. Seems a little bit unlikely that we've thrown in a record transfer bid for a centre-back for a few reasons, and a few reasons that I think proves that this move doesn't necessarily work. The first of them is that this isn't a position that we hugely need. If you have a look at our centre-backs at the minute, we've got Rodon, who plays on the right-hand side, Beale, who plays on the right-hand side and centrally. We've also got James Justin, who plays at right centre-back when we want him to. He can also play right-back and can play left-back. Very, very versatile kind of guy. Sebastian Bornau can play in the middle of that back three. Yes, we need another centre-back, but when it comes to the sort of natural leanings of those centre-backs, it's not really a right-sided centre-back that we need, and Ousmane Diomande is right-footed. We know that the way that Daniel Farke likes to approach things, right-footed players on the right, left-footed players on the left, at least when it comes to centre-backs, because that opens up the passing lanes, means that you can use your wing-backs more effectively, and if you can use your wing-backs effectively, then you can get into that position that, again, Daniel Farke's side quite likes to do, where the wingers cut inside and they cause some problems centrally. In addition to that, it sets a little bit of a weird precedent. because the way that we've been doing things tactically recently is we've put a lot of our emphasis on. Something's gone very weird with my monitor. One moment. Ah, that's fun. It puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that Leeds have recently been making sure that the players that we sign are those that are fairly undervalued, are of an age where they are already starting games of football, they are already in the experienced part of their career, which is fine, brilliant, good. I quite like that we do that. However, that's where Ousmane Diomande doesn't quite fit because he's got plenty of experience, he's played a decent amount of football, fine, good, brilliant. However, in terms of his value, there's a little bit of a question mark as to whether this guy could be, in any world, considered a bargain. If you break your transfer record, which is already approaching £40 million, have you really gotten any form of bargain, or have you just thrown a lot of money into a player? It's quite hard to say, which brings us on to the one context in which I think this move could potentially work. And that context is the one in which we see ourselves as transitioning from relegation battlers to mid-table / competing, which is an interesting transition to make, and I don't think it's one that we realistically make after a single season of Premier League football. It might be what Daniel Farke was talking about when it's sort of been mentioned around setting goals for the next stage of Leeds United, but it's that transition from buying players that keep you up to buying players that secure the future. Diomande is one of those players that will have a ridiculous career in the long term. We could reasonably sign him for £43 million and then in 3 years' time sell him for 80. But the risk comes in when we sign him for £43 million, potentially get relegated next season because we weren't able to use those funds elsewhere in the squad, and have to sell him for 30 because you need to have some money when you go down to the Championship. That's the sort of position that I don't know if we're in quite yet. I don't know if we're in the spot where we can take those risks, where we can take those leaps and those bounds and try and grab onto players that have that future. I don't know if we're there yet. I would love us to be able to make the move for Ousmane Diomande, which is why, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't believe we have made that 35 plus £8 million bid. I think we've potentially reached out to Sporting and said, look, what's this guy worth? Is it worth us continuing the conversation? I think we've probably also reached out to his agent and said, look, would you potentially want to come to Leeds United? What personal terms would it take? On that note, I think it would take some pretty big personal terms. He would not come on a cheap wage. But I don't believe it's gotten to the stage where we've agreed these personal terms or we've put in the bid. If we have, I'd be surprised. If we sign him, I would be, in a way, pleasantly surprised, in a way, concerned, because that's a significant amount of the money that we've got available to us that we would have just thrown onto a single player. It's an interesting little saga. And it's a saga that I will be, without a doubt, keeping my eye on throughout the transfer window because he's going to move somewhere. And if it's Leeds, then we're on a very curious trajectory. I can't wait to see where it ends up. But as always, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed, pop a like on the video. That's always hugely appreciated too. Subscribe, become a channel member, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's 1:21 in the morning. I start work in 20 minutes because it's the World Cup and US time zones are a bastard. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you all later. Toodaloo, me amigos.